What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex. In this video, I want to talk about if Resident Evil 8 is going to be announced this month. So this is a pretty big development. This is a pretty big leak, and there's actually a lot of different layers to this leak. So we're going to read over basically what this leaker, what this insider had to say. Now, with all of these kind of videos, I always say take it with a grain of salt. We're pretty much just kind of going over what he's saying and if I believe that it's real. It's generally what all of these videos are trying to do. So this comes from Insider, or like Resident Evil Insider, I guess, Dusk Golem. Now, this, I believe, is not the same person as this Aesthetic Gamer, who we've talked about actually in the past with different leaks for Resident Evil. But let's go over what he said. Here's what he said. Okay, so the little game is done. This will be breaking this month with more details later, not by myself, but I've needed to clear some stuff up. Resident Evil 2021 is Resident Evil 8, but it wasn't always RE8. During most of its development, it existed as Revelations 3. The reason I said RE8 was years away earlier this year is last year RE8 was in development, and that one is years away. But Capcom didn't want a huge gap between RE7 and RE8, so that title got pushed on the side for now, and internal testing and such was super positive for Revelations 3. Revelations 3 was received a lot better by testers internally, etc., than they expected. So the game's been given an additional year in the oven to convert itself to RE8. The ambassador leaks about werewolves and Ethan in the snowy village are 100% true, but they're outdated info. The game's been going through some huge changes to make it more like a mainline title, big changes to the story, characters, etc. So specifically what you've heard may not be fully true in the final, but a number of elements remain. So as I've said, it's a cross-gen game. There's a lot there. I think you can honestly read this as a little bit of backpedaling. I don't want to go after this guy as well because I don't necessarily know verbatim what he said in the past. I guess I've gotten myself confused because I guess there are two known, notable Resident Evil 8 leakers. I only assumed there was one, again, that Aesthetic Gamer. But I guess they were saying a lot of similar stuff. So I can kind of go off of what that person was saying as well. I believe this to an extent. Again, I feel like some of it, especially with how confusing it seems. I mean, it could just definitely be Capcom, right? They could just have a lot of things going up in the air at the same time, and there could just be some confusion there. But it does seem like he's trying to save face for himself. I just want to throw that out there. If people, if you agree with that, you agree with it. If you don't, you don't. But at the same time, I do agree with I think the majority of this overall. We've heard for a long time that next year's game was going to be a game that was going to be upsetting to fans, that was going to be such a radical change, and a lot of people had said, well, what would be that kind of game that goes against the grain, against what they have done recently, which would be Resident Evil 7, 2's remake, 3's remake, and I had said, my personal prediction was Revelations 3. I think we did a video either here or on PS Edition, and I talked about that rumor, and in that rumor, when we were reading it, they also threw out even like an Umbrella Corps game or a Revelations 3. So a lot of people throwing out Revelations 3. I think that makes sense because it would be considered a spin-off game. It would probably not be the general direction a lot of people want it to go in, so stuff like that. And what it sounds like now is, well, technically it is that, but technically if you want to call it Resident Evil 8, it can be called that. It does sound pretty darn confusing because if you have a game that's supposed to be something, so Revelations 3, if you have a game that's supposed to be that and it does really, really well, now you have to make so maybe, here's my hypothesis. The reason the game is going to be so different, and people had kind of thrown out their reasons for why, I think because of they were throwing out horror aspects, the way they're going to do horror, maybe that's what makes people say, I don't exactly like this. I don't even think that's even close. Here's my personal prediction. I think that people are going to be kind of off-put by this next game because technically it's not supposed to be Resident Evil 8. So yes, there will be werewolves. Yes, there'll be ghosts. Yes, there'll be hallucinations. Yes, there'll be Ethan. Yes, all that kind of stuff. Yes, those will be in the game. But the game is designed to be Revelations 3, and because it did good enough, I'd say, with testing and all that kind of stuff, now they have to insert the rest of the stuff into the game. It's weird because we've actually talked about something like that with Pirates of the Caribbean, like the movie franchise, where say they already have a script done, but then Johnny Depp gets the job back, right? They hire him back as Jack Sparrow. Well, now can you just inject him into what you already have. What do you have to change? And it can be a clean-ish process or a very messy process. And to be quite honest with you, I don't know how this one's going to turn out. I truly do believe that the reason why people are going to be so upset about this game is because it's going to try to be a main installment Resident Evil. It's going to try to take what 7 did, go into 8, and really, it's going to try only for the sake of keeping the name and for keeping certain aspects. And I think that's what's a little upsetting to me, is it kind of shows, if this leak is true, okay, not all leaks are true, but if this leak is true, it kind of shows a little bit of a lack of confidence in Revelations 3. If you're going to do Revelations 3, you do it, and then you just have RE8 later. Again, I understand, and I've said the exact same thing. You don't want to have a big gap between Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 8. That makes entirely, that makes all the sense in the world. And I've been saying that for years, that you would think that, you have these remakes are doing really good, but you got to get back to the main installments. You really do at some point, because that's what kind of drove the entire vehicle, right? So I understand that. But now, so you have Resident Evil 8, which is really Revelations 3, and then you'll have Resident Evil 9, which would be ready in like a few years, because remember, that game is only a little while out, and that game was probably going to come out in 2022. So it is very, very confusing, and I don't necessarily love the idea of injecting a game that's supposed to be a certain kind of game with aspects and elements of another, and then trying to make that work. It sounds like, when you say it out loud, it's like, well, it's not the biggest deal in the world, but no, truly think about it. The Revelation games are different kinds of Resident Evil. So if you have those, and now you try to insert all of the Resident Evil 7 stuff, and that just what that game was trying to do, you put that in there. Well, now you have two different games in one, and I think that's a very, very hard thing to figure out. But it seems like, and then also throw on top of that, he said a lot of things in the beginning and end of this as well. So let's go over those real fast. It'd be a cross-gen game. That's not surprising at all, right? Because if it comes out in 2021, we've talked about it, every developer under the sun, except for maybe certain Sony first-party teams, they would be doing, cross-gen. So if a game comes out on PS5, it's coming out on PS4. If the game comes out on Series X, it's coming out on Xbox One. So this would be out on basically every console that's out at the moment, and that this game will be announced this month. Now, that's the bigger one. That's actually, they kind of just slyly throw that in there, like, this is going to be announced later. I'll kind of come out before then and announce some stuff now, which is pretty much what this guy said. But that would be very, very interesting. Now, the way he said it, and I think the way that I've seen a lot of people reading into it, and maybe other people have said it in general as well, is that they expect this game to be announced non-officially this month. So I guess there's a caveat on there, right? And technically, Capcom themselves is not going to announce RE8, which is really Revelations 3 or whatever. They're not going to announce it this month, but through like credible inside sources, you're gonna get the official, which is weird because it can't be officially confirmed if it's not, from. So it's the leaker kind of verbiage. It's okay. We've lived in that kind of world on this channel for a while, so it's understandable. But that is pretty darn exciting. That would mean that you'd have to get it from somebody big, though. That means now not necessarily one. It could be like a like kind of everybody's reporting on it, like everybody's writing articles. But I could see it happening where there is an insider that breaks it, and then IGN, GameSpot, Kotaku, all of these different websites, they all kind of say like, hey, from an insider that we trust, this is happening. Kind of in the same way when the Arkham game, when it got spread around all social media, all websites, when it was considered a reboot and would be launching in the fall. Remember that news story that was like everywhere that one night and then into the following day? I feel like it would be something like that, where you get word from one place and then everybody's talking about it, because up until this point, it's kind of small news. Nobody is really talking about it. And it also, by the way, makes sense that it wouldn't be Capcom that would announce it this month. This month, still, we're only a couple days removed from Resident Evil 3 releasing. And I know it doesn't take all that long to beat it, but when a game, when a movie, when anything like that comes out, you normally give it some time. You support it, you let it, go through its run, and then you move on afterwards. So I think it makes sense that Capcom probably wouldn't talk about this game for a little while. We didn't get Resident Evil 3's announcement like 2 days after Resident Evil 2's remake. You got to give these games a little time to breathe. And honestly, I feel like that's what's going to happen here. To be honest with you, I think we would get the announcement as early as like June. I think if IGN is doing that online whatever event thing, I think they could easily do something where they can announce it there. Because ultimately, if it's coming out the first, first half, let's say, of 2021, you got to announce it relatively soon. But again, you also have to let Resident Evil 3 breathe. That's really important in terms of marketing your current game. So pretty darn exciting news, guys. There honestly is a lot of room for potential disappointment, potential failure when you try and make one game another game. But at the same time, they've been on a roll. They've done really, really well the last 3 games easily, right? So I have confidence in them. I'm hoping to. I really want a Resident Evil 8. I would want a pure Resident Evil 8, but I'll take a hybrid one that's trying to be something else. I will honestly take that. We'll have to see when something is reported, when something does happen or come out. We will absolutely be covering it on this channel. So if you guys like Resident Evil, if you like me talking about it, I will definitely be doing that in the future. So consider subscribing, consider hitting that bell icon so you guys know when all these videos go up. And thank you so much for watching, guys. I truly appreciate it. I hope to see you all on the next video.